Over the past couple of weeks, the Seattle Seahawks have moved on from two long-term stalwart wide receivers in DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. And though the team has gone out in free agency and been active, getting a couple of at least temporary fill-ins here at the positions in Marquez, Valdez-Scantling, and Cooper Kupp, there is going to be a definitive need here long-term to go get a young, talented, vibrant receiver who can tandem well there with Jackson Smith and Jigba as we go into the future. And one of the guys for me in this draft that I think fits that bill really well and almost perfectly would be Jack Bech. Not a guy that you have to necessarily take really high in this draft, but a guy with a lot of talent who really kind of exploded here in his final senior year. And when you track the reasoning behind why he didn't necessarily up until that point, some of the reasons make some sense. Kid burst onto the scene in his freshman year with almost 500 yards receiving there at LSU as a former four-star recruit. But then over the next couple of years, he got stacked up on the depth chart a little bit behind the likes of future first-round picks, Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas. Hard to fault the kid for that one. Transfers out to TCU then in his junior season, gets injured most of that year, and then finally here in his senior season is able to perform for almost all of the year without getting injured, puts up over 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns receiving, and he looks like a pro who can really fit in this kind of West Coast style of offense. In watching the tape, Jack Bech is one of the closest comps I've seen in recent memory to Cooper Kupp. And no, it's not just because they're white. They're eerily built the same, almost down to the same size. And the way they move on the field, you would think that they were twins at times. Now, Kupp is about a half-inch taller than Bech, and Bech is about 10 pounds heavier than Kupp. But even their arm length is the exact same size. Now that we have Jack Bech's pro days, we also come to find that Kupp and Bech's testing numbers are right on the button, with Kupp being a little bit better on the agility tests, though again, that's at about 10 pounds less lighter weight, and I would estimate that Bech is probably a smidge faster than him. This is also, though, where we get to the inherent difference between the two. In Cooper Kupp, you have a guy who did most of his damage from within the slot in college, only aligned out wide in college 16% of the time, whereas with Bech, you have a guy that was aligned outside 71% of the time. So in Jack, you're not just getting a slot merchant. When it comes to both of these two, they're nuanced route runners with strong hands, and both are very adept at the contested catches. Yak monsters and move the chains kind of offenses, and play in and play out, tough as a $2 steak. We come back to the needs of this offense's receiving room fitting to this player's skills. An outside wide receiver who can create separation with his route running, but who also possesses the run after the catch ability that has helped to produce so many highly productive wide receivers in this offense going back over 40 years in the NFL. Jack Bech's yards after the catch work off some efficient juke moves, well-timed cuts, and a willingness to get Olivia Newton-John physical on contact. It felt like Savion Williams and Bech were out there looking to punish fools on a weekly basis. With the ball in the air, he doesn't mind a corner pushing or tugging on him a bit, and because he can track the ball in the air like a retriever with a tennis ball in flight, he gets his body and hands in the right position to make the catch. There is a reason this man was a Biletnikoff award-winning finalist. Another Cooper Kupp-like aspect of his game is that Jack Bech is kind of a blocking demon. The man got after it on tape. Sound technique, but above all else with that particular position, a true willingness on his part to block hard. Jack Bech has had a great pre-draft evaluation period. He was absolutely money throughout the week of Senior Bowl practices and put an exclamation point on that performance with a game-winning touchdown in the game itself at the end of the week. He had a good, solid pro day that should solidify him firmly into the camp of being a day 2 guy for where he'll be selected in this draft. But you never know. There might be a team that gets a little bit froggy and jumps up into the late first round to go grab him. There are 2 major questions when it comes down to Jack Bech: health and production. On the health front, he missed most of that junior season and did come back this past year and play through most of the year, albeit he did have an injury that jumped up and bit him and did hold him back just a little bit at the end. This does then explain a little bit of the lack of production that we do then see from him, especially in that junior campaign. And when you backtrack this further to his LSU days and after that fine freshman start that he had, we see him stacked up on the depth chart behind Brian Thomas and behind Malik Neighbors, 2 guys that are going to be probably all pro contenders at the wide receiver position in the NFL over the next 5 years at the very least. Hard to shade Jack too much for that. Doesn't mean that he can't still as well be a very fine prospect in this sport, especially with those guys' upper end that they have, their ceiling that they're tantalizingly teasing here at the moment. But in Bech, you have one of my favorites in this entire draft, a guy that I just love how he plays, how hard he plays, and I think he'd be a purified fit this Clint Kubiak scheme. I can also see no better landing place for him than to come here and to be under the tutelage, to be under the wing of Cooper Kupp, to be under the OG, the original Cooper Kupp, so that the 2.0 version can flourish and be brought along that much faster. I'd love to see it. My name is Brandon Kane, the SeahawksNest. Please hit the like button, please subscribe. But beyond all that, don't you ever forget, go Hawks.